Well, Ford's at it again. What is this, over 100 recalls this year? Ford recalls nearly 500,000 vehicles over brake fluid leak. Pretty serious. That's why I'm actually doing this video. I actually have a personal story related to this video. I don't believe it includes the vehicles listed in their NHTSA recall. So I think that people, if you own a Ford SUV, I wanted to kind of make everyone aware of this to just double check something. I think it's going to be easy to just visually inspect your vehicle, even if it's not included in the recall. In addition to that, there's a whole collection of people, YouTubers, other, influencers that talk about how all these manufacturers, it's always just 1% and it's such a tiny percentage of failures and this and that and the other. I want you guys to think through this for a minute. In this specific recall, I'm going to discuss how NHTSA forced Ford to do this recall. And I think it should be the other way around. I think consumers, we should start fighting for the manufacturer who has the data before NHTSA has the data. They have the data, and they should be doing voluntary recalls or fixing these vehicles proactively, not waiting until they're forced to by a government agency. This went on for 3 years before Ford did anything about it. The summary of this problem: a ruptured hose in the brake system might cause the brake fluid to leak. Lengthening your stopping distance. Yeah, no kidding. When you lose hydraulic pressure, that's what happens. You tend not to be able to brake. Actually, I have a personal story. My daughter had a friend recently. She just sent this image to my daughter. And I remember the first thing out of her mouth, she was telling my daughter the story about how she rear-ended somebody, and she said, "My brakes didn't work." Sounds like it could be related to this, although I'm not sure she even has a Ford Edge, which is included in this recall. I think she's actually got an Escape. So here's the official recall on August 22nd, 499,129 potential vehicles. So the 2016 through 2018 Lincoln MKX and the 2015 through 2018 Ford Edge. Oh, and just for all you guys that always say it's only 1%, check it out. Estimated percent with the defects, they always say 1% because that's all they're required to do is report the lowest number. Of course, the manufacturer is going to always say 1%. Do you really think that all these vehicles, that the majority of them are going to not fail? Come on. They actually admit down in this recall that they used subpar materials in the braid, and that's why they were failing. So it says the affected vehicles are equipped with a suspect rear brake jounce hose. So that's like the hose between that little mounting bracket and usually your caliper. I'll show you a picture here. So this isn't the exact picture, but it's going to probably look something like this. So if you really wanted to inspect this, you could probably pop your rear wheels off on any of these Ford SUVs and just take a peek around there. Look at the hose and inspect the entire hose because it could be leaking at any point in the hose. So it says in the description of the defect that the ruptured rear brake jounce hose will cause a progressive fluid leak. So my guess is it starts to rupture, and then as you apply pressure to it, it's probably going to rupture pretty quickly after that, and you're going to lose complete braking power. They do say that the root cause has not been fully determined yet. I think given that they updated the material, we know what the root cause is. See, and here's what bugs me about this. This is putting everyone's safety, in danger. Everybody on the road with all these manufacturers is not just Ford. This is how they handle it, because you know that every single Ford dealership where these were under warranty, they probably got replaced. Ford never said boo about it. And then look at this. On March 18th, 2021, it takes the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration to contact Ford. So this is back in 2021. They contacted Ford and asked them about these vehicle owner questionnaires, alleging that the brake hoses were leaking on the 16 through 17 Ford Edge. And can you believe this? Ford is like, well, only 17 warranty claims have been submitted, so it's like, oh, it's only 0.013 per 1,000. Then fast forward to July 8th, 2024, NHTSA has to contact them again, and they have to take a whole 36 months, take more complaints that have been submitted. You can't tell me that the Ford dealerships don't have this data. Ford has this data. They probably have more data than what NHTSA has in complaints. And it takes NHTSA to probe them and say, hey, this is becoming a bigger issue, and then Ford opens up an investigation. Oh, so what does Ford do? In response to the second probe on July 2024, Ford on September 10th, 2024, Ford assessed the concern as not an unreasonable risk to motor vehicle safety and closed the investigation based on the findings that one customer would receive a red brake warning light before experiencing a reduction in the rate of deceleration. And 2, the braking system that contains 2 isolated circuits. So in the event of the loss of brake fluid in one circuit, the vehicle would be able to stop with 2 of the 4 brakes. And 3, current and projected occurrence rates were not interpreted as indicative of a defect trend. So Ford's saying, oh, this is not bad enough and not enough of a safety risk because we think people, could probably brake in time if they only have 50% of their braking power. Great job, Ford. And it just goes on and on. In October, NHTSA opened a preliminary evaluation, and then Ford had a meeting with NHTSA in July of 2025, and then June, Ford is aware of 64 warranty claims, 3 field reports, 16 customer complaints. So there's more than just what's complained here. It just takes constant pounding to get their attention. Sometimes I guess you need to be hit in the face or slapped to get your attention. Maybe that's what needs to start happening to these companies. It's just bigger consequences for this negligence. But this is the problem with the system. All these manufacturers have access to this data long before NHTSA does. So then you have these spans of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, where people could be dying with this kind of defect. And it's not a joke. It's not funny. It's not like, I don't care if it's like 100 people die. Like, really? This is what we've gotten to the point where it's like, well, it's just a numbers game. Like, this is absurd that this continues to happen. And NHTSA and these other organizations, they need to start finding the crap out of them. There needs to be more consequences, or these manufacturers aren't going to change their behavior. And then there should be investigations. If it was found that they knew about this stuff, it shouldn't matter how many. They should be held accountable in some way. And look, this is coming on the heels of, like, just yesterday, Ford recalls 355,000 trucks over dashboard display failures that could cause crashes. Now, I don't know if it's going to cause a crash, maybe because people are futzing with it and they forget to look up. And I don't know, I'm sure you guys saw this already, but on the instrument panel cluster, the display basically, it's like it tries to go to sleep. There must be a computer software problem and it tries to go to sleep and then the dashboard turns black. Now, an issue like this, at least if you've got your wits about you, you're probably not going to wreck. You're probably just going to pull over, restart your car or whatever. But still, this just points to these electronic issues, brake line issues, axle bolt issues. They're just one thing after another. And most of the time, it points to lack of QC, lack of testing, and usually planned obsolescence, subpar parts being used in some cases. Maybe some assembly errors, maybe lack of inspection in assembling. It's just, it seems daily at this point. It's frustrating. So look, if you've got a Ford Edge, Ford Escape, any of these vehicles from Ford, any of the smaller SUVs, Explorers, I would just pop the wheels off, take a peek at the hose that kind of looks similar to this. Probably not going to look exactly like this. Just take a peek and see if there's any wet looking, usually brake fluid looks wet for a long period of time. So if you get in and pump the brakes a little bit, make sure there's really good pressure. If you feel like you're losing pressure ever in your Ford, I would check those rear brake lines. They used a subpar plastic and braid material, and it was probably just too thin, started to rupture, and then eventually ruptured further to where you just lose complete pressure. So anyway, stay safe out there. Till next time, thanks for watching.